Hello, Julie here and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm creating an art journal page, and in the description box below I will put a link to a playlist that shows my other art journal page videos if you're interested in having a look at those. This page is going into my ring bound art journal pages. I create my own pages for this. I use this paper mill pad. It's a 216 GSM multimedia paper, and I cut that down so that it's 8 3/4 inches by 8 1/4 inches, which is the width of the A4 paper. Once I've done that, I punch the 4 holes in it that my rings are going to go through, and then I give it a good coat of white gesso. I don't always need to have a white gesso base, but if I do gesso the page when I create it, well then I know I'm ready to go no matter what I decide to do on my page, and I don't have to sit around and wait for my gesso to dry. So then I only use the front of each page because I like to write on the back of each page exactly what I've used on the page, so that if I want to like a particular colour and want to know what it is or something like that, or if I like that technique, I can always go back and check the back of my pages and know what I've used, and then I'm able to reuse it next time. I wanted to create an underwater scene for this page, so I didn't have any suitable fish stamps, so I got some white cardstock, just normal cardstock, and a lead pencil, and drew some fish. I drew 4 or 5, I think. I don't end up using that largest one on the top there, but I do end up drawing another larger round fish. As I said, I do gesso the papers when I make the page, but in this case, because I'm using acrylic paints for my background, I didn't really need to do that. I'm going to start with 3 blues, a light blue, a middle blue and a sky blue. They're called sailfin blue, summer blue and sky blue, and I'm just going to sort of blend them down the page as I'm going, so lighter at the top going down to darker in the bottom. Then I'm going to add a little bit of a greeny tinge, a sort of a turquoisey tinge actually. I'm going to use parakeet blue, deep turquoise and southwest teal. When my paint was dry, I took my Dilutions clear stamp called Anatomy of a Page and used that sort of squirrely thing in the middle there that looks a bit like, I thought it looked a bit like seaweed, so I used my archival inks in cornflower blue and fern green to stamp that image in the background. Now this is not very dark, and the idea of using the archival ink is that the archival ink dries permanently, so anything that I add on top of this will not budge it. Excuse me. The impression I'm trying to give is that there's some seaweed and movement on the background of the page. I wanted to add a little bit of darkness to the background now, so I'm using my StazOn once again because it dries permanently. And this zigzaggy sort of stamp, I don't know, I've got no idea what brand it is, I've thrown the packaging away. I'm not applying a full cover to the stamp with the ink because I want it to be just random in the background. I don't want square edges, so I'm just rubbing here and there on my stamp with my StazOn and just stamping randomly to the background. I'm only doing a few pieces of this, I just don't want it to be too dark. I wanted to add some little circles that look like bubbles in my water, so I'm using this deep red stamp. It's called Water Droplet Background, and I'm adding that with my StazOn Opaque Cotton White ink. I'm just going to stamp that over most of the background. To add more texture to my background, I'm going to use my Kaisercraft stencil called Spotty and my Montmartre modelling paste, and just put some little white dots randomly in the background. Once again, I'm not looking for an all-over cover, and I certainly don't want straight edges to it. I also have this Kazaz stencil called Waves and Clouds that I'm going to add to the background as well. I'm just going to put this in a couple of areas so that it looks like waves. Because I want the waves to be coming in from both sides, I have to clean my stencil so I can turn it over to allow the application from the other side of the page. I didn't let the first lot of paste dry before I added the second lot, so I did have a little bit of a squish there. So I set my texture paste aside to dry and started colouring the fish that I had drawn. I thought I would use the Dilutions paint pens for that, but when I got started on it I decided to go with some Sharpies. Both of them are permanent, and I just felt that the Sharpies had a wider nib and wouldn't take me so long to work my way through these fish. I am going to colour each fish and then use a fine black pen to detail each fish. I'm doing 2 here and I'll do the rest off camera. So here we have our 4 fish all fussy cut and ready to go. To create some seaweed for my underwater scene, I have torn some strips of green mulberry paper and I'm going to use my matte medium to attach those to the page. I will put the matte medium under the paper and on top of the paper. This seals the paper and lets me have the opportunity to apply other things on top of the paper. So I can use any of my mediums, like my big brush markers or whatever, to detail these pieces of seaweed. I try to make sure that the seaweed is different sizes, heights, widths, etc., so that that doesn't look too uniform. Once I've got my seaweed attached and that is dry, I use the same matte medium to apply my fish to my page. Once again, I'm using the same technique. I will apply the matte medium to the back of the fish and to the top of the fish for the same reason. In fact, I will end up giving the whole page a coat of matte medium so that when I do apply my shading or whatever I want to apply on top of this page, it will work. It'll move without sinking straight into the page or paper. I let that dry and now I'm going to use my Art Studio permanent marker. It's a 0.4mm to just detail the seaweed and give it a bit of a definition, sort of make it look like something instead of just strips of green paper on a page. Time now to do the shading on my layout. I'm going to use my Stabilo oil pencil in black and a flat-edged water brush. The water allows the black pigment from the pencil to be smooshed, I suppose you could say, moved around, and we can work that so that it fades out. The reason I put the coat of gel medium over the whole area was so that this would work properly. It also gives me the opportunity to use a baby white if I get the black in areas that I don't want it to be. So with the oil pencil you do get the opportunity to move it around very easily, and it's very easy to control. So I do that. I shade around all of the fish and all of the seaweed. I won't make you watch all of that. I will fast forward over a bit of a section and then I'll do the rest off camera. I thought I would like my page to be a bit glossier, so I'm going to give it a coat of gloss gel. Try and give it a bit more shine so that it looks like water. So once my gloss gel was dry, I wanted to give the fish a really high gloss. So I'm using my glossy accents and I'm giving each fish a very thick coat. In real life, this actually stands up off of the paper about 1/8 of an inch. So a good thick coat, and it goes on milky, but once it's dry, it's perfectly clear. I do that to all 4 fish. I wanted to add a border around my page. I always like to have a border to put a definition or an outline or a start and end to the page. So I'm using my Viva Pearl pen in black to just put a single line border around the whole page. My quote for this page is coming from this little booklet of sticky quotes that I've purchased. It's from Art by Marlene, and it says, "What we see depends on what we look for." I'm going to just stick that to the page using the sticky that comes on the label. I may later on have to go over and seal that in there with some gel, but I'm sticking it down, and then I'm using my black fine pen to just draw around the edge and put a little bit of scribble there. So that completes my art journal page for today. In the stills you will see that glossy accents does dry beautifully clear. I hope you've enjoyed watching my video, and thank you for spending part of your day here with me today. If you're not already a subscriber, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. I do card making, scrapbooking and art journaling, and occasionally mini albums. So thanks for being here.